Now listen to this. I want us to sing just that last line alone. Shall life or death, or life? We all go. Shall life or death, or earth or hell, nor I am his forever. No, some of you didn't sing it feeling the song, like the words, the message we are singing. Let's sing that line alone. Sing that message along with us. We go? Shall life or death, or earth or hell, nor I am his forever. Amen, church. Amen. We'll catch up shortly after her. Thank you so much for beautiful singing.
Happy Sabbath, church. Happy Sabbath again. We are happy to have this Health Ministries Sabbath today. And this afternoon, we'd like to thank you for coming back for the afternoon program. We'll have a presentation from Dr. Precious Mlingo, and she is a wellness consultant. So she's chosen the path of specializing to help people to live well, yeah? Not to treat disease only, but to make sure that people are keeping well. And therefore, this afternoon, she'll take us through a presentation. Then we just want to continue to remind you that there's a tent out there that can help you do some basic checkups. It's good to just check and see how you're doing. Your blood pressure, your blood sugar. So after the presentation, I believe you'll be more motivated to go and check and just to see how your health is doing. So before we start, I'd like to invite Kyla Musinga to please come and pray as we start the program. Kyla.
Let's pray. Oh Lord, I thank you for this day. I thank you for everything you've done for us. Please may you protect each and one of us. Please may you help us know more about you. In just when I pray, amen.
Happy Sabbath. Can you hear me? It's okay? All right, I'll invite a member of the communications team to come and assist me with just projecting. Okay, as we are preparing our slides, my name is Dr. Precious Mlingo. I've already been introduced, but just to say a little bit more about what I do. So I work a lot with people who are suffering from chronic conditions. I work with people with diabetes, people with high blood pressure, people with arthritis, people who want to lose weight. And what I try to do is I bring in the lifestyle element. It's very easy to write medication and tell you to take your medication and go home, but it's usually what makes us ill is the way we live, right? And even if we take medication and we don't change the way that we live, we will not experience the fullness of health, right? So as we treat you with medicine, there are certain things that you can and should be doing to try and improve your health, and that's what I generally do. So I look at the lifestyle element, I look at diet, exercise, stress, sleep, supplements, and so on to try and optimize health, right? So this afternoon, I have entitled our session, $1 billion asset. And I think as we go through our session this afternoon, you'll understand why I've called our presentation a $1 billion asset. Can we pray for the technology to, to cooperate? All right, I hope you can all see the screen. If you can't, please move to a more strategic position. The slides are also part of the presentation. So this afternoon, I have entitled our session a $1 billion asset, and as we go through it, you'll understand why I've called it a $1 billion asset. How many of you love cars? How many of you love cars? Okay, most of us love cars. So when I was young, I used to go and stand by the roadside and look at cars and would play a game with my brothers and sisters. One would say, okay, I'm going to count the white cars. One would say the black cars. One would count the blue cars. And there were 5 of us in the family, so you'd have to choose a color. And the idea was to, count, and then we see who wins, right? Who sees, the highest number of cars for their color. And usually, I think it's the white one who used to win. But anyway, cars are something that we all like. And I remember in looking at cars as I began to grow a bit older, I remember looking at a Mercedes-Benz, and I loved the Mercedes-Benz. And I told myself, one day I'm going to grow up, I'll be very rich, I'll make a lot of money, and I'll buy a Mercedes-Benz. Actually, I was going to buy 3 of them. I would have one for the weekend, one for during the week, and one for when I travel. And I still haven't bought it. You guys need to pray for me so I make a lot of money and I buy a Mercedes-Benz. That was my dream when I was young. And to me, the Mercedes-Benz was a very expensive car. To me, it was the most expensive car in the world, right? But I don't know, how many, what are some of the expensive cars that we know of? I realized that Jaguar, huh? Pagani what? Something, he said something. You'll ask him after. I've never heard about that one, but I think it sounds very expensive, huh? Okay, we've got Jaguar, we've got that one. Any other car? Very expensive. A Porsche, yes, Porsche is very expensive. Chrysler, yes. Any other car? So there's some very expensive cars out there. I realize that Mercedes-Benz is down there when you compare it to some of the most expensive cars. Now, when you look at this car that you see on the screen, this car, it even had a name. Can you believe it? Huh? It was called La Voiture Noire, which means the black car in French, right? So this is the most expensive new car ever sold. This car was sold in, must be March of 2019, before COVID hit. And this car sold for 18 million US dollars, right? In the world of cars, vintage cars can cost a bit more. You can get a vintage car going for 60 million or 70 million US dollars. But new cars, am I correct? New cars sometimes are not, because he looks like a car person. New cars sometimes may not be as expensive as vintage cars. But if we look at new cars, this is the most expensive new car ever sold. It sold for 18 what? Million shillings? US dollars, right? Now, when you look at this car, right, what made it expensive? Number one, they only made one of its type, right? And it was sold to a secret buyer. They didn't reveal the identity of the buyer of this car. Some people say it's Ronaldo. Some say it's Messi. We don't know. Someone very rich and famous bought this car. The the car was hand assembled. We know nowadays we don't hand assemble cars. We use machinery, right? But for this car, it was assembled by hand, right? The interior was pure leather. It has 6 exhausts, right? 6, not 1. A normal car has 1. This one had 6 exhausts. You know, the speeds that this car can reach, you know, it's an amazing car. The engineers who made this car actually said, you know what, this is not a car anymore, it's a piece of art, right? That's just how amazing this car is. Now, when I was thinking about this car, it reminded me of something that is priceless, something that is one of the kind, something that is a piece of art, and something that has amazing functionality. Can we guess what that thing is? The human body, right? First of all, I thought to myself, okay, how complex is the human body? The human body has many organ systems. You go from the circulatory system to your respiration, to digestion, to your kidneys, excretion. We have so many different complex organ systems, each with its function, right? So very complex. I thought of intricacy, and I thought of the muscles. You can see there's a picture there of a man with all these muscles. I thought of intricacy. Do you know the human body has over 300 muscles, right? Each with its function, and these muscles have been woven intricately. You know, God was very precise when he was making the human body. I thought of speed. Did you know that nerve impulses are passed at speeds of 360 kilometers per hour across your nerves, right? That's how fast, you know, nerve impulses are transmitted by your body. If you think of strength or robustness, the human body, if all your 300 plus muscles were to pull in one direction, you would generate a force of over 20,000 kilograms. That's about 20 tons. That's how strong all your individual muscles are if they are put together. I thought of uniqueness. Is the human body unique? Are you unique? Have you ever met someone who looks like Miriam? Exactly like you, unless if you're identical twins. The same way they made one laboratoire noir, there's only one you in the world, right? You are unique. Now, in science, we've actually looked at the human body and we've said, you know what? As human beings, we have been built like high-end sports cars, right? You know, the way our body is supposed to function when it's functioning optimally is like a high-end sports car. Now, what's interesting, this morning when I was listening to the sermon, I thought to myself, wow, this is an amazing introduction to our afternoon session today. Now, I think the preacher mentioned something about the value of the human heart or the human body, if you're listening attentively. Now, in my quest to see how amazing the human body is, I said to myself, okay, now if things got bad and I had to liquidate my body parts, how much could I possibly make, right? So I sat down and I began to write. And I went on the internet, I Googled, and I was like, you know what? Let me look at one of the countries that performs the highest number of transplant surgeries in the world, right? So the United States came up, right? They perform the highest number of transplant surgeries. They basically, you know, your organ stops functioning. They can perform surgery to give you another organ, right? So, but then you pay a lot of money in the process. So I looked, and I discovered that if you need a new heart in America, you need to pay about $1,380,000, not shillings, right? And then if you need a new lung, you're looking at about $862,000. Yes? In shillings, you can do it for us. Then you tell me. If you want to replace a lung, you're looking at 862,000 United States dollars, and you have 2 lungs, right? Then we go to kidneys, 415,000 times 2. You go to intestines, 1.1 million. I wrote the figures down, right? Intestines, I wrote the major organs. I went and I wrote the liver. The liver was another 1.2. I wrote the brain. I wrote... But you know, I kept writing and I realized, oh my goodness, what about the teeth, the tongue, the eyes, the skin, the hair? I was like, there's absolutely no way I can finish writing all these organs. And I realized that, you know what, oh my goodness, I am a $1 billion asset. I realized if I were to calculate precisely, I would get to no less than $1 billion, right? So you and I are a $1 billion asset. Can you just say, I am a $1 billion asset? And look at your neighbor and say, you are a $1 billion asset. I am not joking, guys. You know, no amount of money can replace you, right? Many of us know the late Steve Jobs. He had so much money, but one thing he could not buy was life. Not so? Right? So you are more than $1 billion asset. And this afternoon, why have I taken the time to, talk about cars and value? It's because I want us to understand that when you have $1 billion asset, you need to look after it. Right? Some of us have a phone of 1 million shillings, and you will not let anything near that phone. Not so? You guard it with your life. Right? When you're going somewhere, you first make sure my phone is somewhere safe, and you want to guard it. But I want us to consider, if you had a $1 billion asset, you actually have one, that is you. How do you look after a $1 billion asset? That's what we're discussing this afternoon. So how do we begin to look after the $1 billion asset? The first thing, if I owned, let me say hypothetically, I owned La Voiture Noire. I'm the one who bought that very expensive car. Right? The first thing you need to remember when you own a car, or most of us know, is you need to take it for service. Not so? Do you wait for the car to break down? You don't wait for it to break down. They tell you when you go to the mechanic, he tells you after 3,000 or after 5,000 kilometers, bring it in for service. What are they checking? They're checking the oil, checking the brakes, filters, right? Those things need to be changed. You need to be proactive. So it's the same thing with your body. You need to be proactive. You should not wait until you fall sick to go and visit a doctor. You need to go for a checkup at least once every year. Now today we are very lucky, we are very blessed. Part of the checkup has come to us. How often do you get that privilege? Dr. Miriam, I don't know how much those tests cost that you are going to be doing today, but believe you me, you are not paying the cost, but someone is paying the cost. And they've brought these things to you for free to you, right? So please take advantage of it. So when you go for your annual medical checkup, what do you do, right? So the first thing you do is you go there. When you meet the doctor, they'll have a conversation with you, find out about your medical history, find out about your family medical history. You come from a family like mine where almost everyone has high blood pressure. It means I need to be on the lookout, right? You come from a family where there's diabetes. You need to be on the lookout. So you need to check these things even before you get them, right? So after the conversation, you do a full physical examination. They check your body, measure your blood pressure, measure your pulse, measure your weight, measure your wellness. If you come to my clinic, we do what we call wellness biometrics. I'll explain what those are. We do your BMI. Our preacher this morning spoke about BMI. BMI is a measurement of how heavy you are for your height, right? But with a BMI measurement, you can have a normal BMI. I've seen many people. She said a normal BMI is between 18 and 24.9. I've seen many people with a normal BMI who are not healthy, right? This is where the wellness biometrics come in. We measure your body fat. You might have a normal BMI of 24, but your body has 50% fat, right? That is not a healthy BMI, right? You might have a high BMI, but your BMI is mostly muscle, right? Which means that your BMI is okay, right? So we usually want to qualify the BMI. We check your cholesterol, we do an HIV test, we do your blood count, your blood sugar. For the ladies, we do a pap smear to check for cancer of the cervix. We check your urine, your stool. And then depending on your medical history and your age, there's some extra tests you do. For example, if you're at the age of 40 or above like me, we need to check your liver, your kidneys, your thyroid, your calcium. We need to check for cancer of the colon. We do a test called fecal occult. We need to do ECG, echo, and a mammogram. But that's for people 40, 45 and above. So why are we doing these tests? Let me tell you this. It's very possible to walk around, feel normal, and yet there's something brewing inside, right? People with high blood pressure will tell you that your high blood pressure can be very high, but you don't feel anything, right? So it's important to get it checked at least once a year. You can walk around with high blood sugar and not feel a thing, right? So you need to go and get your blood sugar measured. You can walk around with cancer of the cervix brewing and you don't feel a thing. Most illnesses begin to show signs when they have by the time you start feeling pain from cancer, trust me, it's now stage 3, stage 4, right? And yet stage 1, stage 2 is where we can really do something and save your life. That's why going for your annual checkup is very, very important. Treat it like servicing your body. You're servicing your body. You don't want to wait for things to happen. You want to make sure your body is running smoothly, right? That's why an annual checkup is very important. Now we move on to the next element of looking after your billion-dollar asset. Now the lady you see here is my late grandmother, right? Where I come from, we call grandmother Gogo, right? So this is my late grandmother on my mother's side, my maternal side. Like she passed away just this past December. And each time I give a presentation on eating, I talk about her, right? And I won't stop talking about her because she has died. Now, why am I showing you a picture of this lady? When our preacher was, yes, thank you, please open it for me. When our preacher was preaching this morning, she told us about places in the world where people live the longest, right? Now, those places actually have a name. They're called the blue zones. I challenge you, if you've got your phone nearby, just Google blue zones. There are 5 blue zones in the world, places where they have discovered that on average, people live long, not only long, but healthy. Those places are number 1, there's a place in Japan, I think it's called Ikoria. There's a place in Costa Rica, in Italy, in Greece, and finally Loma Linda, the Adventist community in California. People live very long, over 100, right? So they have the highest number of, I call them centenarians in the world, right? These people live up to 100 plus, and they're still healthy and active. So to me, right, I don't need to go to Ikoria, to where, I need to look at my grandmother, right? My grandmother lived a very long and healthy life. That's why I use her as an example. We don't know how old she was, because, they didn't have birth certificates in those days. But what we know is my grandmother had grandchildren who had grandchildren, right? So by the time your grandchild has a grandchild, you can guess how old this person is. But my grandmother lived, she was so active, she was so healthy. For the longest time in her life, she would come and visit us in town, and she spends a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, now she wants to go back to the village. She's telling you, I need to go and dig, I need to go and do this, my groundnuts, my what, and she used to dig on her own. She didn't employ people to dig for her. She used to do it on her own, well into her 90s. This lady was digging. So if I want to find out or understand how to live healthily to 100, I need to go to someone who lived healthily to 100. Not so? She's the example, or they are the example I need to follow. Now, when I look at my grandmother, to me, she's a definition of she used to eat what I would define as a healthy diet, right? I talk to many people, and many times I listen. If you don't come to me at the clinic for a consultation, I am not likely to give you an unsolicited opinion about diet. So I tend to hear a lot of people tell me what they think a healthy diet is. And we have many different ideas about what a healthy diet is. Some of us Google, tell you, I do keto. I did keto and this happened. For me, I do blood group diet. For me, I do paleo. For me, there's so many diets when you go to the internet. So it's so confusing, actually. But I want us to define what a healthy diet is. And if your diet meets all these elements, then I will say to you it's a healthy diet. The first thing is a healthy diet must improve and maintain your overall health, right? If you eat healthily, your health must be improving, not declining. If you find that your health is declining, you need to look back at what you're eating. Point number 1. Number 2, a healthy diet should prevent disease. Of course, we're not going to live forever. My grandmother eventually died. But for as long as possible, she kept at bay all these pressure. She never had diabetes, all these lifestyle-related conditions. So a healthy diet must prevent disease. A healthy diet must meet all the requirements that your body needs to function. Fluid, number one, right? Our body needs fluid to function. Calories, our bodies need energy. Macronutrients, our body needs proteins, for example, for repair. So those are macronutrients. Micronutrients, which maintain and fight off disease, so the vitamins, the minerals, right? Your body also needs what we call our nutrients. Our nutrients are things like flavonoids, enzymes, things we find mostly in fresh fruits and vegetables, right? And we found that these are very important, especially in fighting off cancer. So a healthy diet should bring healing and not disease, right? So if your diet meets all these things, check, 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 then it is a what? A healthy diet. We move a little further. When I look at my grandmother, she would grow her own food, right? So the food used to come from the garden to her plate, right? When you looked at my grandmother's food, it was as close to nature as possible, except when we went there and we bought her sugar and we bought her cooking oil, right? But otherwise, her diet was as natural as possible, right? Her diet had no chemicals, it had no hormones, it had no pesticides, no antibiotics, artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. You walk into a supermarket, you pick a packet which is pink, has pink things in it. Where did it come from? How does it look pink, right? Do you know what I mean? Where you cannot even tell where this food came from. I always say you can't even tell who its mother was, right? Because it's been so processed, they've added so much to it, they've put this color, they've put all these flavors which are not natural. My grandmother's food had no added sugar, no added oil, no added salt. It was unprocessed, unrefined, many times uncooked. Of course, she'd cook some of her food, but many times she'd eat her food raw, right? We need to go back to basics, right? If you want to live like those people in the blue zones, those 5 areas I've spoken about, like my grandmother who lived to close to 100, you need to go back to basics, right? You need to be able to identify your food when it's in the plate. You need to see where it came from, right? When they make a sausage and you buy a sausage, can you tell which animal it came from? You can't, right? It's been so processed, so many chemicals are added to it, you don't know where it came from, right? So we need to avoid eating food that we cannot easily identify. Our food, as we discuss healthy diet, has to be as close to nature as possible, right? And I could stop here on eating, because whatever it is, whether it's a plant or an animal, it has to be as close to nature as possible. If it's a chicken, is it eating what chickens are supposed to eat? Right? What do chickens eat naturally? Yeah, they move around, eat insects, eat plants, eat whatnot. But nowadays, we feed them. Why? To fatten them, so we can make money, right? And in that process, we are deviating from that principle of as close to nature as possible. You look at dairy cows, the cows we keep for milk. Number one, we lock them up because we say that if they move around too much, the milk production goes down. Is that natural? Number two, we inject them so much to increase the milk production, right? We feed them all these things so that the milk production, and our thinking is production, production, money, money, money. And in the process, we are adulterating our food, right? So this is what it means to go back to basics. If you're eating an apple and it's this big, should an apple be this big? Something has been done to the apple, not so, right? So it applies to plants, it applies to animals. The food we eat has to be as close to nature as possible, right? But because most of us went to school, we're going to go a step further. When you sit down to eat your meal, right, this is the meal of a healthy individual. Whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, your meal has to be 50% fruits or vegetables. Fruits are better in the morning. In the afternoon and evening, it has to be vegetables. So half, you can see half of the plate is what? Is fruits or vegetables. 1/4 of the plate, protein. 1/4 of the plate is what we call food, the carbohydrates, right? But I can guarantee you, for those of you who were on that line for lunch, what was in the plate? What did you have? There was what? Posho, rice, matoke in the same plate, filling the plate, not 1/4, right? And then the sauce was what? Like small, and the vegetables were what? Like a tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, right? And that's where we get it wrong. We should be putting more of our money into the what? Into the vegetables. Into this. This is what should take up most of the money. Are greens expensive? Are greens expensive? Is cabbage expensive? I don't understand why we buy such little. Everywhere you go to, you find that the greens, and our stomachs have expanded to accommodate all these carbohydrates. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to prevent disease, if you want to maintain your weight, you want to a large extent, reverse your diabetes or high blood pressure, this is how you need to eat, right? 50% of your plates at breakfast can be fruits. Unless if you're diabetic. If you're diabetic, you need to watch out for the fruits as well, right? At lunchtime, these have to be vegetables. Dinner time, these have to be vegetables. And then when it comes to what we call food, it should be no more than your fist, to be honest. Whether it's matoke, if you decide you want to do matoke, you want to do a yam, it must all fit in that fist, right? No more than that. And some of you are wondering, will you get full? Yes, you'll get full. The vegetables are going to fill you, right? So I know each time I eat food at church, people always say to me, you're not eating food. I am, and I get full, right? From that fistful of food. It's just a matter of what? Of training your body, right? Maybe the picture I put there was something you could not relate to, but I believe this is something we can relate to. So what's important about the carbohydrates as well? Remember, as close to nature as possible. So when you're choosing your carbohydrates, you need to choose natural carbohydrates, like what? Matoke, yam, cassava, pumpkin, what else? Sweet potato. Is chapati natural? Is chapati natural? It's a vegetable. So chapati has been processed. Not only do you take when you make flour, because chapati is made from flour, you take the wheat, you remove the outside of the wheat, which is the good part, by the way. You throw it and give it to the animals. You keep the inner part, which is very starchy, right? You make the flour. Then what do you put in chapati? You put oil, salt. They mix it with pumpkin, okay. Okay, so if they mix a bit of pumpkin, at least that one is a little bit better. But generally, your average chapati you're going to buy on the corner of the street is made from white flour. So that does not meet our definition of as close to nature as possible. Because when you look at a chapati, which nature is that? Ask yourself, right? White rice, is it as close to nature as possible? It's not as close to nature as possible. We've removed the outer part of the white rice. To make the rice white, you actually go there and modify it. Natural rice is brown, right? That's natural rice. Natural rice is brown. So when you choose your food, it has to be as close to nature as possible. When you look at this picture here, that is like kalor. All these are greens. This person has chosen to eat, I think this is goat meat, which is natural from the village. This is fine, right? And then you have, because I've said goat meat is fine. We'll talk about meat just now. And then here you have pumpkin. This person has mashed their pumpkin. I like doing this. I actually mash it and I put peanut butter, like the G-nuts. And then this is beans, right? 25%. And then these are vegetables, 50%. So it's meeting it's a small plate. You can add vegetables. You can make them even more. Now this one has brown rice, some beans, and some vegetables. This is how we're supposed to be eating, right? If you want your matoke, you can this is matoke. You put your matoke here. If you want G-nuts can go here, right? You eat your nakati, or katunkuma, or whatever you like eating. As vegetables, it goes there. It's 50% of your plate. Now that is a plate of good health. Now, what other principles before I have to be explicit about certain things. So we need to avoid sugar. I think our speaker this morning did justice to that. Sugar or sweetened food. Sometimes we buy the food, it's already sweet. Now, when you're eating a food and it's sweet, ask yourself what is making that food sweet. All right, so they've added sugar or they've added artificial sweeteners, which are even worse than sugar. Right, so we need to avoid sugar, avoid artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners are cancer-causing. We should avoid eating too many carbohydrates, I've said. Same plate, posho, matoke, chapati, yam, sweet potato, all in the same plate. We need to avoid that way of eating. For those of us who are young, you think that you're going to be young forever. You get to my age and you start seeing the impact of eating like that. Right? It eventually catches up with all of us. We need to avoid the dairy, the milk, and the milk products. I've already said what we subject our cows to produce this milk. Refined oils. Any oil that says refined on it is unsafe. Right? Processed meat should be completely avoided. What is processed meat? Meat which is taken to the factory, altered, they add chemicals, this, that to it. Those chemicals are cancerous. So the sausage, for those who eat the cold meats, and all of that, especially Viennas, right? Those should not have any room in our home completely. What's processed meat? The WHO has classified processed meat as a category 1 risk factor for colon cancer. So where you find things like arsenic, you find things like radiation as a risk for cancer, they've put processed meat there as well. So the risk for getting colon cancer from processed meat is very, very high. It's about 30%. So processed meat is not a good idea. Then when it comes to elder, the issue of meat, we address it here. You want your diet to be as plant-based as possible, right? So eat more vegetables. We want to limit our intake of meat to 2 to 3 times a week maximum, right? If you can avoid it and have healthy alternatives, fine. But if you feel like I must eat my meat, be careful about where your meat is coming from. That's the first thing, right? It cannot be the chicken which is ready in 4 weeks. That's not natural, right? If you're going to eat your goat, know where the meat has come from, how that goat has been reared. If you're eating fish, know where that fish has come from, right? So you need to be very clear about the source of the meat. So eat more white meat or lean meat than red meat, right? Because red meat, again, too much red meat consumption increases your risk for colon cancer and other cancers. So you want to limit your intake of red meat. So if you want to eat your goat, your beef, your what, yeah, you do, but please don't do it excessively. So try to eat mostly plant-based foods. Can you get protein from plants? You can. Like which ones? Beans. What else? Yes, chia seeds. Yes, Mrs. Chia. Chia seeds, peas, nuts, lentils, all those are high in protein. But even your greens are high in, also have some protein in there, right? So you can get protein from your vegetables, right? So let's limit the intake of meat, right? So we move on to exercise. If you have questions, please write them down. We'll address them at the end. Exercise is something that we should all be doing, even if you're on a wheelchair. I design exercises for people on wheelchairs. You should still do some form of exercise. There's no excuse. If you've got 2 legs and you can walk, you can exercise. Are we together? Whether you are, 2-year-old or you are an 80-year-old, you should be doing some form of exercise. So when we exercise, we are performing some activity to maintain our physical fitness. What are the benefits? There are many, from weight loss to preventing heart disease, blood pressure, cholesterol, keeping your bones, your muscles strong. There are so many benefits. And there are different types of exercise. There are some we do to improve our heart health, the cardiovascular exercise. There are some we do to strengthen our muscles. There are some we do to improve our balance. There are some we do to maintain our flexibility. You want to be able to touch your toes, right? Without screaming and shouting and all sorts of pain. So you want to maintain your flexibility it will serve you well as you grow older. Right? What are examples of exercise? The beauty with exercise is there are so many things you can choose from. You don't have to do what you don't like. You can find that one thing that you enjoy, but you can't find it if you don't try. Right? You don't find it by sitting in front of the TV. You have to go out there and you actually try. Right? So you can walk. I love walking. That's my favorite form of exercise because it's cheap, it's free. You can do it from anywhere. Right? So walking, jogging, swimming, biking. Some people like being with other people, so they play sports. They do football, they do volleyball, basketball. Some people do individual sports, tennis, play golf. Some people, then there's the weights. And of course, you need to stretch each time you exercise. So how much exercise is enough? Scientifically, we say you need to do at least 150 minutes of exercise a week if you are doing light or moderate exercise. So if you're walking, if you are doing the slow kind of swimming, if you're cycling, if you're doing yoga, you need to do 150 minutes per week. If you're doing the high intensity kind of exercise, the running, the jogging, the intense stuff, you can do 75 minutes per week. You can't wake up on a Sunday morning. I know we have Sunday walkers or runners. Wake up and you run on Sunday for 2 hours and then you say, I am finished. Right? You can't. You need to know those minutes need to be split throughout the week, 3 to 5 days. Even if you can do 7 days, it's fine, but you can't just do on Sunday and say, I've covered for the week, I'm sorted. No, you're not. You need to, because exercise, you need to keep your heart muscle pumping to gain that endurance. So you need to do at least 3 to 5 days. So how do you do this? Right? The first thing is you live in Chuatule. Don't choose a gym in Munyonyo. Right? Make it convenient. You shouldn't go out of your way to exercise because what you are trying to build is a habit. You're trying to make it consistent. You're trying to make it regular and consistent. So find something convenient. And so we always say do it at work or at home or somewhere in between. Right? So if you can exercise at work, fine. At home, fine. Or somewhere in that route where it's not going to be difficult for you to maintain. Right? If you have to branch off and go in a different direction in jam, chances are after a month or two, you'll get tired. Right? So it has to be convenient. Number 2, choose something you enjoy. I've already said this. There are certain people who just cannot run to save their life. It's fine. Choose something else. Right? Choose something else. Choose something that you enjoy. Work out with your friends or your spouse, right? Or your colleagues at the office to make it enjoyable. Join a team sport. There's some people who are so social. They tell you, I cannot exercise by myself. So join a sport. There's so many sports happening in Kampala. If you didn't know, everyone. Some people, whilst you are sleeping or watching TVs, others are out there, exercising. There are so many sports available. Come up with a set time. Decide when you're going to exercise, either first thing in the morning, if it's easy for you, or last thing in the evening. So choose what is easy. Some people go at lunchtime if it's doable. So identify the time that works for you. Use the weekend, because weekend sometimes things are a little more flexible. Like now, I encourage you get home, take a walk. I don't think walking is breaking the Sabbath, right? You can walk for like 30 minutes or an hour. So use the weekend and then try to find a few days during the week. Because I know during the week you're dropping kids, picking, going to work, becomes a bit tricky. Give yourself a goal, right? What is your target? You want to lose weight, you want to become fit, you want to run at the MTN marathon, find a target to work towards. And then also, please, this thing I see in the gym, someone goes, they work out, and then they stand on the scale. Like, have you seen that? I've seen it. So don't obsess about results, right? Results will follow when you maintain the habit. So you need to work on the habit. The results are going to follow. Yeah, I've seen people work out, they sweat, and then they go to the scale and I want to see. So let's not obsess. So how do you get started? Number 1, start slow. If you've not been exercising, please don't sign up for a marathon. I know there's the Rotary Run coming soon. Is it not Rotary or NSSF? One of those, yes. So don't sign up for 21 kilometers on NSSF if you've not been doing anything. So you start slow, right? Give yourself small goals. Tell yourself, okay, 15, 20 minutes a day, and then I'll build it up to 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and so on. Consider your current fitness levels, so be honest with yourself, right? If you know you are really unfit, right, do something that is safe for your fitness levels. Don't do something that will, the next day you have a muscle pull, for 2 months you can't do anything. Think of your individual requirements and goals. Are you trying to lose weight? Maybe doing a bit of cardio with strength training will work for you, right? So think of what you want to achieve. Invest in the right clothing and shoes, especially if you're going to walk or run. It's important to have the right kind of shoes, or else the ankles, the knees, the hips will give way. Hydrate adequately, so you need to drink water. Consult your doctor if you have any health concerns, right? So there are certain individuals who need to be very cautious before they enter into an exercise program. Listen to your body, right? If it's hurting, stop, right? If something is hurting, don't think, let me soldier on. It's a sign for you to stop, maybe take a break, try again and see if it will get better. And then gradually build up. I think I've already said this, build up the time or the intensity with time, and then remember to end with stretches. So there are many things you can do from home. This is a list of all the things you can actually do in the comfort of your own home without paying an expensive gym subscription, without buying expensive equipment, except for the third from the last, where you can buy equipment if you can afford to. But equipment doesn't mean buying expensive things. Yes, I actually have this slide where I put exercise equipment under 50K that you can actually invest in. Skipping rope, a body ball, a few weights, resistant band, exercise mat. So there are many things you can buy which are quite cheap. A skipping rope is actually even like less than 20K, right? So there are things you can buy and keep at home that can help you to build up the exercise habit. Now we move on to the issue of sleep. We're coming towards the end of our presentation. Sleep is very important for maintaining your health, right? I work with people who are trying to lose weight, and some of them, the weight has really jammed to go because they don't sleep, right? And it's a serious thing. If you don't sleep well, it's going to affect your health, right? Some people, their blood pressure is high simply because they don't sleep, right? So sleep is very, very important when it comes to managing your health. So it's important. And I realize we have a problem with sleep. Many people I see are just not sleeping enough, right? Whether it's because we don't prioritize it, whether we are stuck in jam and get home late and have to wake up early, right? Sleep is something that I've seen is a very big problem with many people. So we need at least 7 hours of sleep every night. So in order for you to get 7 hours, you need to go to bed at least 2 hours before midnight, right? On average, I know many of us are up 5:30, some even 4:45. So for you to get that 7 hours, it means you need to go to sleep by at least 10 p.m., right, the night before. What are we doing before we go to sleep? We're on the phone, we're on WhatsApp, we're on the TV, a few of us maybe have candidates who are doing homework, but yeah, some of us, yes, supper at 10 p.m., which you shouldn't do. And because the next point is avoid heavy meals at least 2 to 3 hours before going to bed, right? Because that meal is going to rob you of your sleep. It's hard to sleep when your stomach is full. And again, we're eating a very big meal, right, at dinner. So that also affects the sleep. So dinner should really be your lightest meal of the day. Should be dinner. Because what's that food going to do when you've eaten it and you go to sleep, right? What's going to happen is get stored. If over the years your stomach has been growing bigger and bigger and bigger, I encourage you to look at your supper as one of the problems, right? That supper needs to be very light because everything you eat in the evening is going to feed the stomach. Storage, right? That's what happens. Avoid electronics before bed. So manage your phone. Huh? You can't be on Twitter. What does TikTok? What until like midnight, right? Put away. Avoid stimulants. There are some people who don't know that green tea is a stimulant. So don't drink green tea in the evening. Drink it in the morning. It has caffeine. It will rob you of your sleep. Avoid energy drinks. What at night. Don't take those things. They will rob you of your sleep. Instead, drink some herbal tea. Whether it's ginger, lemon, chamomile, those teas are good in the evening. But of course, not immediately before you go to sleep, because then you'll wake up for other reasons. Huh? And then manage your phone when you go to sleep, right? Whether it's switching it off or putting it on silent. Do something so that it doesn't disturb your sleep. And the last thing we want to talk about today is dealing with stress. Stress is also a major contributor to disease and a lot of health challenges, right? Many times when I see people who, we diagnose people with high blood pressure, with arthritis or diabetes, usually you can identify a stressful event in that person's life, usually. Or someone has suddenly put on so much weight. They used to be very small. They put on a lot of weight rapidly. And when I ask them what happened around the time you began to put on weight, they'll tell you COVID happened. They'll tell you I lost a loved one. They'll tell you I lost my job. Right? They'll tell you something. I went through a divorce. There's always a stress trigger around the time where this health challenge began, right? And I've even seen it with people who've been diagnosed with cancer. Sometimes they'll tell you that the year I was diagnosed with cancer, this and this and this happened, right? So stress affects our immunity and the ability of our body to fight off disease. Stress causes certain hormones to be released, which affect our metabolism. Then we put on weight, our blood pressure goes up, and so many things happen to us. So we need to deal with stress. How do we deal with stress? I feel like in life you can go through anything as long as you have people around you who are supportive, right? Human connections make us tick, right? It's easy for you to go through a hardship when you have people surrounding you. Not so? They make it easier to bear, right? So human connections are important. Research has shown that people with secure long-term relationships are happier in general and fall sick much less than people who are isolated, who don't have any support structure. So it's important for us to build, maintain, and seek out healthy relationships, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's colleagues. Build those relationships, right? You cannot exist in isolation. You need to be intentional. Building relationships takes effort, takes discomfort, takes getting out of your comfort zone, right? It requires time for you to build good relationships. So it's important that you build healthy relationships, but on the same token, it's important to avoid toxic people, right? There are some people you're going to meet in life who will drain your energy. Each time you are with that individual, you walk away feeling less, you walk away feeling stressed, you walk away doubting yourself, right? Just their presence makes you begin to wonder, am I doing anything in life? Huh? So you need to limit your exposure to such individuals, right? Because they rob you of your energy. Then relaxation is important. I think the preacher also said this morning, please spend time doing the things you enjoy doing, because life is to be what? It's to be lived, right? So find time on a daily basis to unwind, on a weekly and occasionally, right? On a daily basis, what can you do to relax, have that quiet time, have time for prayer, for meditation on scripture, time to journal. On a weekly basis, enjoy a Sabbath. I'm not only saying this to you as Adventists. Even when I give this presentation to people who are not Adventists in offices, I tell them to enjoy a Sabbath, because it's such a universal principle. It's important to find that day of rest for humanity. I think God created us in that way. We need to cut off at some point during the week. You need to reflect, rest, and rejuvenate on that day. Occasionally go on holiday. right? And going on holiday is not going to Dubai alone, right? Going on holiday, for me, going to the village is going on holiday. You get out of Kampala, you go and you breathe nice, fresh air, right? Have you seen how good the sleep is in the village? You eat that nutritious local food, right? It's such a great change of environment. So you need to have that break away from Kampala. And then learn to set clear boundaries and learn to say no, right? There are some of us who think that it is holy to be busy all the time, right? From Monday to Monday, you are constantly on the move, right? Trying to be Superman and Superwoman. So it's important to set boundaries, and sometimes it's important to learn how to say no. Not all the time, but sometimes it's important to, when you feel burnt out, to say no. Engage in healthy activities you enjoy. How many of you have a hobby? A hobby, something you enjoy doing. Yeah, besides a hobby, whether it's music, Elder plays, is music, is it also your hobby? Elder plays the piano. It can be very relaxing, right? Yeah. Some people like photography, some people like reading, playing a sport. So there are many different hobbies you can enjoy. Find one, right? These are the things that make life interesting. These are things which help you to manage stress, right? I love walking. I think walking is exercise and a hobby for me. I love reading. I love listening to music. So whenever I'm stressed, I walk and listen to music at the same time. And when I'm done, I feel so much better. And then confront. What is life without conflict? There will always be conflict in life. So we need to solve conflicts, whether it's with your wife, your child, your colleague. It's important for us to, we will find that more often than not, we need to solve conflicts. So it's important that we resolve conflicts quickly. How do we do this? The first thing is you approach with this open and sober mind. Remember, you are not God, so you also make mistakes. So when you come to speak to this person, remember there's a chance that you are the one who is in the wrong, right? So when you approach the other person, keep an open mind. Be ready to apologize if feelings were hurt, right? When you hurt, sometimes you feel like you did the right thing, but you hurt a feeling. At least apologize for the feeling that you caused, right? Do you understand? You need to apologize if feelings were hurt. Compromise. It's important for you to remember that for relationships to work, there has to be compromise. Agree to disagree if necessary, right? Maybe you like Man U, I like Arsenal. We shall never agree, so we agree to disagree. You stay with your Man U, I stay with what? That's agreeing to disagree. Bring in a trusted third party if you can't conclude. If you can't solve the conflict, it's important to bring in a trusted, and the key word is trusted, third party to help us solve the conflict, right? So let's identify that person who can help us to talk issues through and is not going to go and tell the rest of the world, right? And sometimes we need to confront ourselves. Confronting might mean confronting your habits. Why is it that at the end of the month, there's always more month than money? Should I confront my spending habits? Am I living beyond my means? Right? Because I see everyone buying KFC at lunchtime, I also want to buy KFC and I can't afford. Do you see what I mean? So sometimes confrontation requires confronting ourselves, confronting our habits, and putting those, because at the end of the month, you're going to be stressed if you don't have any money, right? So you need to go back and look at how am I spending my money in the first place. Our final slide today, a few other tips. We didn't talk much about water, but let's make water our beverage of choice. Not soda, right? Not energy drinks, not juice, but water, right? How do you know how much water you need to drink? Our speaker this morning said 8 glasses of water. You can take your weight, divide by 30 to find out the exact number. So if you are 60 kgs, divide by 32 liters. If you are 90 kgs, divide by 33 liters, right? But the final thing is look at your urine. If your urine is yellow, it is screaming for more water. If your urine is more watery, it means that you need to reduce the water you're drinking. So it has to be somewhere in between. We say a pale yellow color or a straw color. That's the perfect color of urine. So anything outside that, the urine is trying to tell you something. Get plenty of sunshine. You will not believe this, but many people who come to see me, like 99% of people are vitamin D deficient. It's such a common thing in Uganda where we have plenty of sunshine, but how many of us are actually going out there and enjoy and sit in the sunshine? So it's important that we spend at least 20 to 30 minutes in the sun every single day. Breathe. Our speaker this morning said her mother would send her outside and they would breathe in, take deep breaths. So it's important for us to breathe in clean air. It's good for our respiration. It's good for stress as well. Spirituality, we cannot discount spirituality. When we look at the 5 blue zones in the world, one thing that they have in common is that people in those communities are highly spiritual, right? So spirituality is an essential ingredient for a healthy lifestyle. Detoxify. As much as I've said eat natural food, sometimes it's hard to get the natural food. Many of us go to the market, that food has been sprayed. Not so with chemicals. Sometimes it's difficult. You may try so hard, but there are inevitably toxins that you will ingest. So it's important that once in a while you detoxify to try and get rid of those toxins from your body. So detoxifying means maybe juicing for 3 to 5 days. Detoxifying means going on a raw food diet for 5 or so days, just to allow your body a break from all this food and take in a high concentration of nutrients just to clean out your cells. So it's important to detoxify. Ensure good digestion and elimination. If you are not going for a long call once a day, there's a problem, right? There's no way you can be healthy if the long call is not regular. So you need to ensure that you are going once or even twice a day. That is very healthy. Avoid smoking and alcohol. I don't think I need to say much about this. Smoking and alcohol are risk factors for disease. And finally, keep a clean heart, right? When you walk around angry, bitter, annoyed, right, there is absolutely no way you are going to be healthy, right? So it's important to forgive. It's important to iron things out, right, with the people you're constantly in contact with. It's important to keep a clean heart, right? Because if you walk around annoyed, disease is going to follow you. So I think we've come to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening. Are there any questions? Why am I not surprised? Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Many questions, but there's something that I've always asked myself. Is there a possibility that you take water and your body does not take in all the water you're taking? Does that happen sometimes?
Okay, it does not absorb the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, not all of it is absorbed.
Is there a condition that could probably stop
water from getting absorbed
properly the normal way? Is that possible?
I don't think so. Because even if you have malabsorption, you should still be able to absorb water. Unless if you've got diarrhea.
No diarrhea.
A laxative or something.
Just wonder because there's those times you're taking water, your normal, I don't know if I can do 8 glasses, but I have like 2 liters and then you're feeling thirsty all the time. Could there be a problem?
Yes, there could be.
Okay, please.
So that's why the checkups are important. So if you are over thirsty, it could indicate a number of different health conditions. So it's important to get that checkup done. But obviously, I'm not going to start saying, you might have this. Then you walk away saying that I've said. But that's where the checkups come in. So if you're constantly thirsty, I think your body is trying to tell you something. There might be something that's going on. Yes. Any other question?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Precious. Mine is about milk. If I take the milk tea, this is milk with water, like twice or 3 times a week, is that wrong?
Okay, if it's 2 to 3 times a week and you keep it there, it may not affect you adversely, right? But if you take it every single day, then the chances are high. So if it's just 2 to 3, I think one of the things I didn't emphasize when I go back to, there's a slide here on diets. I think I didn't emphasize this point. Let me emphasize it. When I talked about what to avoid, I put the aim for 90 to 10%. So for us to have a healthy body, you need to eat healthily 90% of the time, right? 90% of the time. 10% of the time you can cheat and still remain healthy. Are we together? But if you are eating unhealthily 50% of the time and healthily 50% of the time, then so that 10% can be the milk for you, right? Where you say, okay, maybe twice a week I'm going to take milk. Right? You can still remain healthy. Depending on what you're eating on all the other, do you understand? So 90% try to eat healthily. 10% of the time, you say, let me also go and have a pizza. Are we together? So when you have the pizza, but it can't be pizza every day. It can't be Rolex every day. But you can say, hey, once or twice a week I'll do my Rolex. That's allowed. It's life. You want to enjoy. You want to go for a birthday party and eat the cake. I don't believe that now we should go for a birthday party and say, yeah? You eat, but you can't be eating the cake every. Do you understand? So moderation is very important. So I'm not saying completely abandon. Of course, there are some things I would prefer we completely abandon, right? However, if we cannot completely abandon, there's that 10%. But we need to be careful because it can be 10%, then it becomes 20, then it becomes... So we need to really ensure that it's only 10%. I hope I've answered your question. Okay. But if you want milk replacements, there are other healthier alternatives, plant-based milk. There's goat milk, which is much better than dairy. Right? It's healthier. So actually, people in the blue zones tend to eat more goat products, like goat yogurt or goat cheese, or they also use sheep milk, sheep cheese, things like that. The goat protein is easier for us to digest as human beings, but the milk protein is difficult for us to digest. Any other question? Yes, there's one there and then one at the back.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Dr. Precious. Mine is, I would like to know the times of the 3 different meals, the breakfast, the lunch, and the supper. Because usually sometimes breakfast, I could have a late breakfast at 11, then lunch at 1. That's just 2 hours. So I just want to know the ideal times of these 3 meals.
Okay, all right. Let me answer that question in an interesting way. When I go back to my grandmother, who lived very long. This is how she would go to the village, would visit her, and then you wake up, she'd wake you up early in the morning, like 5 a.m., and then you go and you dig, right? And you don't take anything. You'd go and dig until like 12. And then one of your cousins who stayed behind will bring food around 12. I don't know if this resonates. You probably eat your first meal around 12, right? And then you maybe dig a little bit more until it gets hot. Then you go back. When you get home, you're now doing chores around the compound, the cleaning, the what. And then you eat the next meal around what time? 5 or 6. Because you've eaten at 12. You're not going to eat at 1. You're going to eat around 5 or 6. And then you go to sleep what time? With the sun. Usually by the sun goes down like an hour or so later. You what? You go to sleep. And so we would eat like how many meals? How are those people in the village? They are strong. They don't have obesity. They don't have pressure. They don't have diabetes. Am I correct? Right? And those people were living a life of what we call intermittent fasting, which now scientifically we're trying to say, intermittent fast. But truth be told, that's how we've always lived, especially here in Africa. Right? It was very rare that you'd wake up in the village and you'd have like 3 big meals the way we do now. So I personally believe that very few of us can actually function optimally on 3 very big meals. Right? So to answer your question, eat when you are truly hungry. Sometimes we eat out of habit. You wake up and you're told at some point that you must have breakfast, so you must have it or else. And you're not hungry in the morning, but you still eat nonetheless. Then lunchtime, evening, with time, things get out of control. So what I really believe is most of us have like a clock where we are most hungry. Personally, I don't eat breakfast. I eat my first meal in the afternoon, and then I'll have something light in the evening. So the principles are, look, if you're hungry in the morning, eat, right? But you can't be overloading your body with each meal. If you can make it with 2 meals, eat the 2 meals. There's no problem with that, right? If you can't and you need your 3, that's fine. But make sure the dinner is light, right? Very few of us can eat like a very big dinner and sustain that for the rest of our lives without getting any health issues. So that last meal in the evening truly has to be a light meal, right? So if you can do a nice lunch, big lunch, and then a light dinner, that's fine. If you must do a breakfast, it's okay. Eat your breakfast, eat your lunch, but have a light dinner. Yeah. I hope I've answered you.
Yogurt, if it's plain yogurt, I mean there's no sugar, and Then another thing is there are some foods, if you eat like, to me, if I eat like beans today, tomorrow, the next day, I get heartburn. So at least today beans, then the next day fish, then another day gin. At least you're mixing. Is it okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Because I'm not condemning you to a life of beans every day. You like, there are many options, so it's up to you to decide what options work for you. And then there are some people who have allergies, right? If they eat something, they react. You need to factor that in. So you look at what is permissible, right? So we said, okay, beans are good, peas are good, nuts are good. We said, what else? Lentils. All those are sources of protein. They are good. We said the chicken, which has been brought up the right way, is also, it's fine. The goat, which is brought up the right way, is also, but once in a while. So you can plan your menu for sure. Today you have beans. Tomorrow you have nuts. The next day you have fish. Following day you have chicken. The next day you have peas. That's fine. And then the yogurt thing, not every day. Yogurt must fall into the 10% unless if it's goat yogurt. So goat yogurt, they say goat yogurt is the only animal product you can eat every day and remain healthy. It's easy for us to digest. But the animal, the one from the cow's milk, not every day. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Precious. Mine is about, you mentioned of spirituality.
Yes.
It's in regard to fasting and dry fasting. We find that we fast because we are praying over something, and then it is a whole 12 hours with nothing in our stomachs. Then we find food, any food, because we've been fasting, and we eat. And then after that meal, we have issues.
Yes, that's a very good question. Fasting is a very healthy part of not only spirituality, but it's good for your health. You know, when you fast, you actually detoxify your body. So fasting is important. Now, if you look at all major religions in the world, there's fasting. Whether you're a Muslim, they have Ramadan. Whether you're a Catholic, they have Lent. Whether, every religion will emphasize fasting, right? So it's very good. It's good for health, but how you do it is important. So you mentioned the dry fasting. You can only safely dry fast for a maximum of 3 days. But even then, it's very hard, right? So by 3 days, your body is dehydrated. You definitely need to drink some water. So we don't encourage dry fasting for more than 3 days, right? So when you fast, like you said, Jamima, that first meal after the fast is very important. You can't then now sit there and eat that big meal. Because remember, your digestive system has slowed down, right? Your digestive system has healed. It's become, actually when it heals, it becomes a little more sensitive. So it's important that you start with something light. Start with some fruit. Start with a soup. start with a salad. Don't go full throttle, right? Matoke, peanuts. So it's important that you introduce the food slowly. So for the detox programs that we run, when we do like the juicing and the fasting, we actually transition with raw food. You go into the fasting, then we transition again with raw food back into normal eating. You don't want to just, because you will get a lot of issues because your body was not used to digesting for all those number of days that you were, or those number of hours that you were fasting. Another question?
Thank you, Dr. Precious. Mine is about, it's a lifestyle thing. You realize that some of us here, we go to saunas, steam bathing, and all that. Then the perception behind sauna is detoxifying.
Yes.
Because as you're sweating, you're detoxifying. Yeah, so how well would it resonate with healthy living, like you've put it? Thank you.
All right. That's actually a good practice. So it's actually correct that going to the sauna or to the steam bath actually helps with detoxifying. Because one of the ways our bodies detoxifies is through sweat, right? But my problem now is you've come from that sauna, you go, you eat nyama choma, you eat. So sometimes we do the right things, but then we then go and do an action which is completely opposite to what we're trying to achieve, in which case going to the sauna is a waste of time. So it's important to do it correctly. And what's because the sauna you're going to go at, maybe once a week, once in 2 weeks, what? But what you're doing on a daily basis contributes more to your health and well-being than that occasional visit to the sauna, right? So yes, it's correct, you detoxify, but you move out of that place, and you go and do a completely opposite action, it defeats. So I even say with detoxifying, you detoxify, the next thing you're eating a cookie. Then you might as well have not wasted your energy, you understand? Because when you do such actions, you need to then support, right, to practice a lifestyle that supports that which you are trying to achieve. But because we like easy things, it's easy for me to pay and just enter the sauna. It's harder for me to change my diet. It's harder for me to exercise. It's harder for me to... So I'd rather say I comfort myself by doing the easy thing, right? But look, it's not going to help you in the long run. The issue is in my day-to-day lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah. I also have a question. Mine is on the ratio of what you take. It's like 50% fruits and vegetable and maybe a quarter or this feast is enough for a day.
Yes. Not for a day, but for the meal.
For the meal.
Yes.
All right. Given those who do heavy activities like digging of foundations and others, how practical is that? Because sometimes the energy you need to do a day work is a lot. Do we think this would be enough to generate energy to keep someone do heavy activity?
Okay, in most cases, if they are going to do that, if you're going to eat your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it should be, right? However, when we talk about the healthy plate, it's for an average individual, right? An average individual. So people who do strong manual work may not necessarily end up falling in this category. People who are trying to lose weight and are heavy are not going to fall into this category. People who are diabetic are not going to fall into this category. So the way we interpret this plate is for an average person. If you have something extra you are trying to achieve over and above like the normal individual, you may need to adjust this plate, right? So I know some people who do heavy manual labor and eat like this and they're fine. However, if you are engaged in manual labor for many hours in the day, you can get away with eating more carbohydrates because you're going to burn them, right? So it's very possible that you can eat those carbohydrates and you'd still be fine because you are burning most of it as energy. But this plate, as you are interpreting it, interpret it as a plate for the average individual. But there are many people who may not fall into the category of an average individual. I hope that's clear, right? So for most of us who are doing sedentary work or some, not such heavy activity in a day, this is the way we need to live, right? But if there's something you're trying to achieve, you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to manage a disease condition, you are engaged, you're trying to build muscle and be a bodybuilder, you may need to make adjustments to this. I hope that's clear. Yeah. That's fine. Okay, looks like we don't have any more questions. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Dr. Miriam. Yes, we'll share, I don't know how we'll share it, but I'll talk to the communications team and see how we can share it. Thank you.
One more question. Eh? There's someone at the back there with a burning question.
Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. Just one inquiry. If you're anti-citrus, so you've been taken off citrus, what is the alternative to cover that gap?
Okay, so if you're not taking any citrus fruits, I think you're probably concerned about vitamin C especially. But the beauty is vitamin C is pretty much in every raw fruit or vegetable that you're going to eat. So you're not going to be missing much. So your berries are going to have vitamin C, pineapple is going to have vitamin C, green pepper, yellow pepper, red pepper, vitamin C. So there are many, many alternatives. So even your greens are going to have vitamin C. So you're not really missing out on anything if you're not taking any citrus fruits. What you get from a citrus fruit, you can get from many other fruits as well.
Thank you, Dr. Precious. How many of us want to clap for Dr. Precious for the good work? Thank you. The tent, we still are doing some checkups in the tent, so please don't leave before you know your blood pressure, your blood sugar. It's just good to know where you are with your health. I'd like to invite Elder Atik to please pray for us as we close this session.
Yes, as we pray, I also want to add my voice to those thanking Dr. Precious for this wonderful presentation. And I think next time when we do this, we should mobilize so that people can attend in bigger numbers, because there are quite a number who have actually missed it. Some of them because they are already there trying to check themselves. So next time we shall mobilize better so that people can attend and get these very valuable information which can actually have a very positive effect on our lives. May we pray. Mighty Father, we thank you so much for the privilege you give us that some of this valuable information can flow to us freely, while others are paying expensively to access the same. We pray that you may bless the ministry of these people, Father, so that so many can still get the benefits from their services. Continue blessing each and every one of us here, but most importantly, let us endeavor to put into practice what we have learned. And if it has worked for us, Lord, let us have the time to come and testify at a certain time. Bless us now and bless us always. And as it has come to the time when we are closing this, we pray, Almighty Father, that when the time comes and we are going to our places, give us your journey mercies and take us to your place, our places of abode, and bless us throughout the week, Almighty Father, until when we get the time to come here once more, Almighty Father. For this, our humble prayer, in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.